Hey gamers, it's Flowergothic, coming to you from her phone because I don't really feel like setting up the camera right now. And also I have an important phone call to make in less than an hour, so shh. Anyway, welcome to part 2 of Leapers Creek, the final Onision book that I'm going to read because from my understanding he is writing a 4th book, but it's pretty much just porn, so I ain't gonna be charging that shit with a 10-foot clown pole. Anyway, I don't really have much else to say. I mean, I'm back on streaming schedule. I'm returning with a new miniseries in March. I promise y'all I'm working on the James Bond video. Enjoy! Alright, so this is day 1 of continuing to read Reaper's Creek for your entertainment and my absolute masochism. I don't know how else to say it. So I think we left off on chapter 14? Yeah, 14. Okay, so disclaimer, I actually did read a couple of these back in like, I don't know, April-ish? It's July now, so I ended up deciding to not save those onto my computer because I thought they sounded like shit. So I'm going to reread them for part 2 of my Reaper's Creek reading. Yay! Also, I'm trying to get rid of all this rum. I'm 21 now, so it's legal. If you're wondering, I just put ice in it. It's mostly melted now because I took a shit-ass long time to start reading. Chapter 14, No More. Excuse me, a voice came from beyond the darkness created by my own eyes. Weird way to say that someone talked to you while your eyes were closed, but okay. I opened them. Hello, said the flight attendant standing next to my aisle seat. I replied, I'm not going to do the dashes anymore. Those were fucking terrible for me to do, so I'm not going to fucking bother with them anymore. Just know that they're there, they're excessive, and they fucking suck. Oh, hi, did I do something? She laughed and answered, no, I was just wondering why you didn't impregnate Julia. All right, bottoms up. I was wide awake now, no words, no ability to talk. The flight attendant continued, was she everything you wanted? Shame about being so far away from her now. I wonder if she'll sleep with Michael next. I couldn't even look at her. My eyes were fixated on the drop-down tray in front of me. I heard a familiar voice laugh near first class. The flight attendant dusted off her vest and walked away as if she didn't just say anything mortifying to me at all. The laugh in the distance continued, but I was so deep in my thoughts, so physically numb, I couldn't do anything but remain still, almost as if I was in shock, paralyzed. While brief, that woman attacked my most vulnerable place, your dick. It turned me upside down as if it was nothing. By the time the plane landed, I had mostly recovered. I had high anxiety about the laughter I heard while the flight attendant harassed me. Instead of having high anxiety about the laughter while the flight attendant was harassing you. The rum is already taking a toll on me. Woo, fuckity-hoo. Whoever it was would no doubt be gone by the time I got to the front, as first class always leaves the plane first. No shit. The plane was a cluttered mess as we tried to get off, a typical routine. Everyone crushed together in the long aluminum can, trying to gather their shame-covering cloths, packed in their nearly identical zipper bags, smacking each other clumsily as they moved said storage containers from the overhead bins. Upper body strength escaped so many of us. Walking forward, I could see all the seats within my line of sight were empty. It was a relief. Just before getting off the plane, I noticed one of the first-class bathrooms were open. I could only see the light surrounding a mirror inside. Upon the reflection sat a face, smiling at me. The moment I recognized who it was, I ran. Oh no! Who could it be? Could it perhaps be the aliens? Bottoms up. Laughter from the bathroom exploded after my first few steps, then faded as I got away from the boy, the alien, whoever he really was. It seemed every time I was around a metal roof or housing, he had to follow me. I came to a complete stop just before stumbling through the exit of my gate. I don't want to live like this. I don't want to keep running. I don't want to keep getting abducted or drugged. Taking a deep breath, I walked back on the plane, ignoring the looks people were giving me as I passed them. I had pushed half these people out of the way in my earlier sprint, now I'm pushing past them again. I felt rude, but my anger made me blind to caring whatsoever. The boy from special ed class told you it was the fucking aliens! Didn't expect me to return. He was still chuckling to himself in the bathroom. The flight attendant who harassed me earlier said, "Oh, excuse me," clearly confused and conflicted by my return to the plane. Without hesitation, I grabbed a fork from the flight attendant food distribution cart. There probably was a shorter way to say that, and planted it as deep as I could into the neck of the special ed boy. As soon as the fork went completely in, making contact with bones in his... Oh god, no. Bottoms up! As soon as the fork went in his spine, his eyes went black. He had a look of absolute shock and terror, as if he was a sibling playing pranks and someone just snapped. But this boy was not my sibling. This boy was not even human. Immediately behind me, I heard a loud smack. It was the flight attendant. She had fallen, her head colliding with the metal cart I just grabbed a fork from, brought to you by the Department of Redundancy Department. Maybe he was controlling her telepathically, or maybe I wasn't just a nut job. Or maybe I was a nut job and this was all a hallucination, my bad. Either way, I didn't want to be around to try and explain any of this. As the other airline staff members crowded around the fallen woman, I looked back to see the alien's human skin facade melting away. How stupid. There was no disguise, no failsafe. What began to show itself was just a smaller version of the aliens I encountered in my dreams. Now I definitely had to get out of there. Walking away quickly, but not in a manner that implied I was guilty of anything, I made my way to the baggage claim relatively fast. My sister was already there. As soon as she saw me, she yelled, "What took you so long, dork?" I didn't reply. "What are you doing, stepbro?" Shortly after, my mom showed up and drove us home. She just talked about how much she missed us. She also made a joke about her eyes not exploding in a while, which was not even remotely funny considering what I had just gone through. It's easy to laugh at past pain. It's impossible to genuinely laugh at if the pain is ongoing, for me at least. Oh, boo-hoo. Being in my old foam bed was incredible. Next to the hum of the furnace, the washer and dryer actively cleaning the clothes we hadn't washed before we packed to come home, brought to you for no reason whatsoever. The noise, it drowned out my thoughts of the hopefully dead alien that stalked me wherever I want, and the horrible way I felt when the flight attendant dug right into my most intimate experience ever. Stabbing that freak in the neck, however, that was therapy. That was me dealing with the endless times I had been tortured on that craft, the endless harassment I endured, and my vengeance for whatever they did to me. With all of the familiar ambient noise, I began to fall asleep, but before I was even completely unconscious, I was already on another ship again. They could have taken me at any point during the summer, but here I was, all of a sudden the center of attention. I was frozen in place, vertically positioned as usual. This time, someone who looked human walked forward. He reminded me of Agent Smith from the Matrix movies. I don't remember who the fuck that is, for fuck's sake. Only with black hair and a head that wasn't completely oversized for his body. I have no frame of reference for Agent Smith. His voice was different too, almost like what you would expect from a New York businessman. "You killed him, and we thank you for that. We have questions forever. What did he do to you before you went to your dad's house? What did he say to you on that—" "No more!" I screamed, interrupting him. "I will not tolerate any of you anymore!" I screamed even louder. So much rage shot out of me, the loudness of my voice visibly disturbed the man before me. I screamed again. "I will see you all die! Die!" This time around, half the man's face was torn off by my screams. Noises I had never heard came from his chest, as if that was the true origin of his words. I was released to begin walking toward me, the man with now half a face, brought to you by the Department of Redundancy Department. I said die! 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 I should probably stop messing with my set. I don't want it to collapse. The remainder of his head exploded. Out of the darkness came aliens in their natural form. They were bigger than me, but somehow I changed that. Immediately I grew. The aliens now beneath me, and I screamed again as they tried to approach me from multiple sides like human animal control trying to capture a beast of rabies. You all die! I hate you all! Die! All of you die! 2 more heads exploded until I was ejected from the spacecraft. Free falling again, it felt so familiar. Like I was having a flashback to the other time I had to witness my removal from the craft. Only I didn't want to fall silently to my bed like before. They would just come back, do more tests on me, or at the very least, try to answer the questions they asked earlier. What did that boy do to me? As I continued to plummet down toward the earth, I tried numerous ways of flying. The Superman position with one fist above me toward space, the Iron Man pose with my hands, feet pointing down as if jets were coming out of them. I'm gonna respond to that text later. I'm sorry, Albert. I'm reading right now. This terrible, terrible book. As if jets were coming out of them, I even tried flapping my arms furiously. None of it worked. Finally, I simply focused. I told myself I would not fall. I let go of my weight mentally and emotionally. I told myself I could travel at the speed of light. I felt energy rising up within me. I began to fall in reverse. Seconds passed and I was back on the ship. The aliens were panicking. Their screams sounded just like the boys did on the plane when I stabbed him. I screamed again and 2 more aliens died. Only I quickly realized it wasn't my scream that was ending their lives. It was my mind. Simply focusing my rage would end them. I'm thirsty now. Thirsty for Onision's blood. And tap water. The more I killed, the more I remembered that boy digging around my head in the bathroom at my elementary school. I saw him as if I was watching. Above my body, there was something in my head, something black that had a glow to it. I could see he was not adding something to my body, instead he was removing things. Things that looked like implants the other aliens gave me. The more I saw him working on me, the more I realized I had killed someone who was just protecting me. That's why he looked at me with shock in such a way that almost seemed like his feelings were hurt, like he just saw his own pet dying right in front of him. When I planted that fork in his neck, I saw remorse. These astral memories swelled in my mind as I slaughtered the aliens that rejected him, the aliens that boy had fought to protect me from. I could feel many of the aliens still on board, still alive. I felt them in my chest, killing. Like everything else, it gets boring after a while. My rage had died. It was too easy. They kept trying to eject me like before, but like a warm wave hitting a massive wall of pure obsidian, it had no effect against my newfound astral control. Jesus fucking Christ! I wanted to go home. The ship was now deep in space. I also wanted everyone on board to die, and quickly. I visualized a bomb in the center of the ship, a bomb that would consume everything within 10,000 yards and crush it like a tin can under a cement truck. In an instant, everything around me was pulled away, yet I remained in place. I could see alien heads turn to paste. I could feel walls that did not even exist before my eyes bending and crunching. I could hear alien blood shooting out of every hole in the bodies. Under my own will, I shot off back toward Earth, back toward my bed, back toward the hub of the furnace, to wake up tomorrow as if none of this happened. Good morning, good morning, good morning to you. We're happy, so happy. Good morning to you. My mom was saying, good morning, Mom, I said, end chapter. Thank fuck. Bottoms up! Okay, I had to change my camera battery. If you're wondering why it took me a while to start reading these, it was because they showed the trailer for the Tropical Rouge Precure movie, yeah! And it is going to feature the Hardcatch team because it's their 10th anniversary, and Hardcatch is like the best series in the entire franchise, and I can't believe it, oh my god! I am like no chill when it comes to this kind of shit, am I? Chapter 15, God of Black. The aliens haven't bothered me for years. Apparently it's a time skip. Maybe they didn't send out a distress signal. Maybe they're afraid of me. I've been keeping myself busy with my abilities. I've learned to levitate on command. I've learned to cook food with my thoughts. I can make water funnel upward and fall just by thinking about it. I can even repair injuries. There's a manga I read many years ago. It's a really bad manga. I don't recommend it. It's basically the Twilight of manga. It's called Blackbird, and the shtick is that it's a human girl and a demon that's also a hot guy. They fall in love and he sucks on her wounds. That's like a thing that happens. It's very cursed. It's so bad. Like, it even has like a demon pregnancy ending. Like, it's basically the Twilight of manga. I might read it for y'all one day, but shit. Whatever is in my head, it can change the world around it in an instant. Maybe it was growing over time. Maybe the older I get, the more the aliens fear me, which is why they've tried to get me so young. I imagine I've been left alone all this time because I simply wanted to be. A lot of people have been doing whatever I want them to. Wrong too. Julia is 18 now, cursed. And we've gone all the way many times. Oh god, that's cursed. I hate this. I hate how this fucker shares my name. Ah! I never told her to do anything, but the summer that just passed, the moment I desired her, she made herself available to me. She calls me when I miss her. She doesn't when I'm distracted. No one argues with me anymore. No one questions me. My test scores in class are always passing, even when I pay absolutely no attention. It's September, a sunny day out. Being 14, I had just started high school. David was coincidentally in all the same classes as me. I had grown fond of him being around. We had a lot of long talks. He let me know all the reasons he ever did anything to distance himself from me. We even hugged. Throughout all the orientations today, whenever I found myself getting bored, things would suddenly turn to a typical name game. Some teachers even resorted to letting us roam the halls early to get a better feel for the school on our own. This was all as I expected, exactly what I wanted, motherfucker. In my last class of the day, PE, apparently it's not orientation anymore, the instructor was talking about the essentials of safety. A male student with long black hair to my right raised his hand and asked the teacher, "But what if we want to hurt someone?" The teacher looked back at the student and said, "Why would you want to hurt someone?" The boy looked at me and I saw right through him. I saw his alien form. It took years, but they finally decided to pursue me again. Bottoms up! It's starting to look more like a beer now. I promise you this is a rum. Okay? Okay. Before you ask in the comments, it's Malibu Black. He didn't get a chance to reply to the teacher's question. I knew what he was going to say. He was going to try and imply that I was a danger to the other students. He was going to try and out me. Everyone gathered around him as he gasped for breath and fell over. The moment he looked into my eyes, it was like time froze. My heart was beating so quickly, my focus was so precise, I felt like my eyes could out the air in half. That was when I decided he should die. A moment before I severed his ability to breath, reality glowed around me. The lights, the skin of all the students, the teacher's bald head, it was like I could see everything I needed and it all shined. In the moment my existence demanded it, I knew everything I needed to know. I didn't need to hide anymore. I realized nothing could hurt me. That alien underestimated me, and when I was done deciding his fate, when I was done soaking in the reality of the situation, numerous factors saturating the air like whispers in my ear had all spoken their piece at once. I surmised no one had ever known whoever or whatever I am. "I'm calling an ambulance," screamed the PE teacher as the alien's head smacked the ground repeatedly as it convulsed on the floor. His skull cracking open from all the violent thrashing echoed through my head. I'm gonna get more rum. Bottoms up, bitches. Oh, Jesus Christ, that was so good. When I realized the aliens had found me, my brain instinctively sent a vibration outward so I could sense where this creature had come from. This trail left a stench I could only sense in my mind. Fuck you. Thousands of miles away, a ship idle. Fuck you. This one was different from the last. Fuck you. Thinking of the one that came over before, over time I grew so remorse for what I did to all the creatures on the initial ship. Fuck you. It was somewhat nice to know that I wouldn't be killing the innocent bystanders and families of those who came to harm me this time around. Fuck you. I lay down slowly as the screams began. The alien skin was melting away and everyone who gathered around him began to see that boy for who he really was. I'm sure after a while they would notice I was now passed out, but I planned to be back before anyone showed concern. Flight out of your body is incredibly smooth. You can see the clouds blowing through the air, but you don't feel a thing. There's no weight, no friction, or any form of resistance. The speed I traveled was selective. I was taking my time getting to the ship simply because I hadn't traveled into space since the last time they visited me. Hurrying would imply I was worried, but I knew I had plenty of time. Fuck you. The moment I passed through the walls, a field activated around the entire ship. I don't think they knew I would find out what was going on so quickly. They thought I was now trapped, but I wasn't going to bother proving them wrong yet. My curiosity consumed me. Fuck you. The aliens on board looked rough. Some had significant scars, others were old and crippled. Passing through multiple rooms on the ship, I could hear their minds and vocal cords screaming. There was a kitchen, a control station, bathrooms, bedrooms, everything you would expect on a space station made by humans, only in black and not quite presented in the same styles or proportions, brought to you for no reason whatsoever. It was beyond obvious these creatures were not here by their own choice. My original assumption was that they were simply afraid as they heard stories about me, but seeing their bodies, they appeared as prisoners. This species must be one to exile anyone who is imperfect. I'm getting some water. Fuck this shit. Ah! My water! No! It's on the floor, it doesn't matter. It was odd though, I had seen these aliens repair exploded eyes before. I had seen them heal as if it was nothing before. So why were all these rooms full of broken creatures? I'm not spilling you, Ron. Unless there was a monetary system in their society and healing came at a price, I still feel bad for them. They were terrified of me and had no will to harm me. As I arrived in the control center of the ship, I could see the pilots were not piloting anything at all. It was as if this was all set up elsewhere. One of the creatures who was not horrified by my presence approached me and tried to communicate me in their alien language. I could feel what it felt. Bullshit. It was afraid of the second ship, a ship that hid behind a cloak that those on board had no idea could detect and see right through. I felt sympathy for this creature speaking to me. Bullshit. He reminded me of the special ed boy who dragged me in the bathroom, so also he could remove the devices the other aliens planted in my brain to attempt stunting my abilities. The invisible ship fired a beam toward the prisoner ship that penetrated the force field. Everyone exploded around me. My arms, my legs, my upper body. I didn't even notice it was all gone in an instant. I found myself floating through space, past the field the elite aliens had generated around the now decimated prisoner ship. They shot me once more. I felt nothing. They fired again, and I continued to advance regardless. These creatures were not stupid. They knew they were all about to die. It took them only seconds before they attempted to evade me, but before then they even began to turn. The entire ship was crushed in front of my reforming eyes. As my brain grew around the black rock, the source of who I am, and my body was restored to its full form. It felt a sense of immortality. The world was mine, maybe one day the universe, but I've been up here too long. Time for return to class. Ugh. How many pages is this chapter? Fucking, I'm reading this chapter. Do I have enough room to tolerate this? Give me 1 second. So, if y'all watch my streaming channel, Flowergothic Stream Archive, it's in my info. No, it's not my info box. It's in that channels page on my YouTube channel. You know, the thing that nobody ever clicks. Anyway, I bought this vodka. Well, I obtained this vodka in order to celebrate the fact that Carl Phillip and his wife, Sophia, had a baby boy that they named Julian because apparently they hate me. I need to finish this off too. I've had this for months. So, if we were in the room, actually, curious about something. Ooh, that doesn't taste bad at all. No, it looks like pee. No, it looks more like pee. Thanks, vodka. And that should be plenty to help me get through this bullshit. I'm probably going to be slurring up a storm by the end of this, but fuck it. This is what you've done to me, Onision. Fuck you. Chapter 16. Goodbye, Washington. I was sitting in the nurse's office. I was visited by other students, some I barely knew, lost in thoughts over what had happened. Beyond the comprehension of most of the people who were visiting me, I came to a realization the power I have inside me has turned my entire world into whatever I desire. No shit, bottoms up. or drinking the rum water vodka fusion. Bottoms up. I am human despite the rock in my head. All I am is another person. I have selfish thoughts. I am designed toward my own species. I'm programmed to do whatever it takes to survive. And now I'm manipulating the world around me to make everyone love me, but that's wrong. Oh, boo-hoo. You're such an inspiration, Onision. You're not going to take advantage of your powers anymore because apparently you think that's wrong, despite the fact that, you took advantage of multiple underage fans of yours and Kai's. Isn't that the facts, Onision? Because, if you had actual evidence that the claims against you are false, you would have showed them on the Chris Hansen show long ago. I think I've made it very clear that you're a piece of shit, Onision. Fuck you! Shit. Get off of me, you fucking set! There's war, and then there's normal life. In war, you can do whatever you can to continue your existence, but this perversion of reality itself, I don't want it anymore. Dave was smiling across the room with me. Two pretty teachers with cleavage showing stood by waiting for me to address them at the entrance of the room. Bottoms up. I looked at all of them and I smiled. Something is about to change, I said. The teacher with larger breaths than most anyone I've seen replied, What do you mean, cutie? For emphasis, I should proudly show my breasts, but I'm not going to do that because that's against YouTube's terms of service. They're there. I'm just not going to show them. And click, just like that, their smiles faded. Both teachers, overcome with the expression of confusion, immediately left the room. David stood up, looked me in the eyes, and lifted his finger and said, I don't know what's going on, but I haven't liked you since elementary school. Stay away from me. He then proceeded to leaving the room. This felt better. This felt like real life. End of chapter. Just kidding. There's more. Walking out of the nurse's office, most students had already left. The buses were gone, but my mom was just pulling up outside the car. She hadn't smiled very much since she left Papa. He drank alcohol a lot. She didn't like his use of illegal drugs either. Apparently, this was already established in the first half of the book. No, it wasn't. This just came the fuck out of nowhere. What the fuck are you talking about, Greg? Daniel Greg? You know, the thing about the Von Dutch cap for? Fuck it, I should wear that right now. I'm not going anywhere else tonight. So the whole joke I was going to make in my original Reaper's Creek video was that I was going to look like pre-makeover Daniel Westling, aka Prince Daniel, the Duke of Vestergotland. I think that's how you pronounce it. I might be wrong. And in a lot of photos before his makeover, he wore a Von Dutch cap because it was the 2000s. So I'm just gonna wear this now and actually make my purchase worthwhile. Fuck you! At one point, he grabbed her, threw her against the wall, screamed at her. She finally decided to leave him, saying it was to protect us, but from what I recall, he was always nice to us. My sisters handled the divorce relatively well. My eldest, remember, the one that's apparently there but we've never actually had a conversation with, seemed to care the least. We would all have relationship problems in our future, maybe as a result of our mother leading by example, maybe because of our genetics, or maybe because this was just the way humans are. Maybe it's Maybelline, maybe it's Von Dutch, not sponsored. My mother didn't talk to me much on the drive home. Something had changed in her like it did everyone else. I was curious, so I chose to dive into her mind, silently sitting behind her. There was a negative circular narrative running through her head. She couldn't get over her eyes exploding all those years ago, reasonably so. She was thinking about me, how I was the one at fault, and she seemed to want nothing to do with me, despite the fact I was her own flesh and blood. I didn't dive into her mind further than her surface thoughts. I would go back to everyone liking me, to everyone smiling when I entered the room, but that is a fiction. It's a tanny bed instead of a beach. When I got home, it was more of the same. I was a freak to my family. I was only seeing it now as I had been in denial before, and because of the mutated black core in my brain, the world denied it with me. I was to call Julia tonight. Bottoms up. She was expecting me, incredibly worried. My hand shook as I lifted my phone. On the other hand, Julia answered almost immediately. Hi, Daniel, she happily yelped into the phone. Hi, Julia, I replied. I miss you so much. I've been thinking about you all day, she said genuinely. I was so happy to hear someone still liked me, but maybe she only liked me because she didn't know about who I was. Without hesitation, I sent a wave of thoughts her way. They filled her mind. She fell into complete silence. The abductions, the dead animals, the creatures I killed, my mother's eyes, she saw it all. I made sure of that. Oh, you're such a No, you're such a fucking good-ass, perfect-ass person, Daniel, Greg. Like, what the fuck? What the fuck? I'm gonna take a selfie for my friends. There. Focus. Julia, I asked. Julia spoke softly. I just had so many. I interrupted her. It's me, Julia. I can do anything I want, and I wanted you to know who I am. Julia went silent on the other line. After another moment, she asked, "You controlled all those people?" I answered, "Yes, I did. I've hurt people. I've seen and done things beyond this world." Now it was her turn to interrupt me. "Did you control me? Why am I the same?" After a brief pause, I said, "I don't know. I'm glad you still like me, though." Julia spoke up quickly again. "Come see me." Setting down the phone, I walked over to my family sitting in front of the room watching TV. We were living in a condo with 2 bedrooms thanks to the divorce. "I'm going to leave for a while," I said. A tear fell down my mom's face, clearly still swamped with thoughts of before. She said, "You can't just leave when you want. You're 14, my middle sister added. Maybe he should leave. Seconds later, the sliding door closed behind me. I kissed my dog goodbye, just as I only did without my body. I flew off into the air toward Ohio, where Julia was waiting. The trip to her took as long as I wanted it to, which was about 15 minutes. I leaned outside her window on her porch, trying to position myself in a good lighting and pose she might think is cool. I spoke to her mind. "Julia, look outside." Julia looked up to her window in a towel. She had just gone out of the shower. Her facial expression was priceless. She was even more amazed when a human-sized hole formed in a wall seemingly on its own. Walking toward her, center. This is in the center, paragraph alignment. I don't know why. I grabbed her and kissed her. I was so much taller than her. It was perfect. This is still illegal. She went to kiss me back, wrapping her arms around me, which had caused her towel to fall. I lifted her up, leaving the perfect hole in her wall behind me. I laid her on her bed. The next hour of my life was spent doing everything I wanted to do, and I knew she fell in perfect line with any influence. A bullet passed through my neck and into her forehead. Chapter over. Thank fuck. Good night, bitches. Hey gang, y'all ready for the next 3 chapters of Reaper's Creek? I sure am fucking not. Here's the deal, y'all. It's 11:03 p.m. right now on this Wednesday. I'm in my pajamas. I felt like shit all day, and I still feel like shit. I looked like shit. And I really didn't want to make y'all suffer through how shit I looked. So I'm just gonna get this shit over with. I have no alcohol with me. I had like a glass of white wine like 5 hours ago, I think. I only have water on me. I'm not gonna drink. I'm gonna do this sober because I feel like shit and alcohol's probably gonna make it worse. Oh, Jesus Christ. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going on with me. I think it's just a little bug, but we'll find out. Chapter 17. Oh yeah, we are on chapter 17. Playing God. She was dead. Apparently, yeah, Julia died. Okay, cool. I stared at her as the life left her eyes. I didn't see a red glow. I saw a diverse explosion of light before me. Her essence, her energy leaving her body. Julia had been shot through the neck, bled out, and all I did was stare. The man who shot her, he was wearing a funny costume. He must have thought very highly of himself. I should have known he was behind me. Oh, God. This is already gonna be a fucking pain. I should have known he was peering through the skylight above us, carefully aiming his weapon to do what he no doubt thought would kill me. I knew why he was here. I could read everything about the situation I found myself in to the smallest detail. He was hired by a person who was hired by another person who was sent to employ an assassin such as him. Those creatures that took me on their ship, the ones that tested on me, tried to defeat my Black Stone. Apparently that's what his superpowers are, known as the Black Stone, whatever. They really thought that if they sent someone after me who wasn't like them, I wouldn't retaliate. Time for punishment. The assassin was pinned against the wall, blood leaking from his ears to match his polka dot suit, red and black, ridiculous. Julia's soul moved in the slowest of motion, almost as if she was sticking around to look into her own eyes and see her own dead body. You know, the one that fucked a minor. Just like you hear in all those stories, we left looking at ourselves as we leave, almost like one final goodbye. There were creatures all over Earth just like the ones who took me. Only these ones hid in human skin. It was time for there to be none. My body collapsed as I ejected out of it. Time froze again. I imagined a beam of energy coming out of the back of my neck, my spine, my tailbone, and feet. I forward thrusted through the wall, shooting across highways, through wooded areas, and across the ocean, and traveled to every green light I could see and feel for thousands of miles. The green light I programmed or otherwise designated in my mind to signify the visitors. All I would have to do is get close enough to see their face for them to die. I could have simply imagined them perish from across the planet, but I wanted to see, I wanted to be close, I wanted to experience their death in my own presence. Ugh, fucking hell. Do you miss me? Miss misery? I can say you do. There were creatures in the bodies of children. Their adopted mothers screamed at the loss of them. Mother is wrong. Possessive implies that they all had one mother. I'm sorry I had to. Some of them had fathers who cried. Some of them had no fathers at all. Other creatures were businessmen. In fact, most of them were. I pulled some of them out of buildings. I drowned some in their own bathtubs. The rest I simply separated head from body. It occurred in real time. Their deaths took me 17 hours and 47 minutes to accomplish. Apparently, he was timing it. However, this was in the other realm of existence. Thus, I was back before the assassin could let out his second scream of pain for my intentional tightening of pressure around his entire body. I wanted my body upright by the time I got back, and there I was, standing lifeless next to Julia in our blood-soaked bed, right waiting for my soul to return. As I faced through the wall, I walked into my body and lurched toward the man on the wall, holding his throat, feeling his pulse blink on my arm. I spoke to him. I want you to see how pointless what you have done is. He looked at me with a smile in his eyes, showing his teeth and a half grin on his face as blood seeped out of his mouth. He gurgled, "I don't fear you." I replied, "Julia?" The man looked at me, trying to hold back his confusion, masking it with false confidence. Julia sat up in bed. The light her soul filled the room with was gone. Without much thought, I returned her to this world and had given her all the information she needed to know. Julia blinked a few times and looked at me, holding the man against the wall with flurry eyes. "You're naked," she said, and I replied, "And it's not just your blood I'm drenched in, darling." Y'all motherfuckers need Jesus. Oh my god. "What is this?" the assassin screamed. I replied, "I just wanted you to see that you accomplished nothing, and your employers are dead." A look of desperation crossed his eyes as the walls melted behind him. I didn't want to kill him, to be brutally honest. I only wanted to kill what I feared. The creatures from another world, they had the means to kill me. I knew I would have to commit further genocide against them to truly protect myself. But this human? All humans? There was nothing for them to do but kneel. 1 second, I'm gonna tell Andrew goodnight. As the man passed through the walls, soaring hundreds of miles from me at thousands of miles per hour, I made sure he stayed alive and that he landed in a swamp near nothing familiar to him. Somebody once told me! I spared this man, but left him broken. If he lived at this point, that would be up to him. As the walls were formed, the blood evaporated into nothing, as the floor cleaned itself and the furniture we broke reassembled, as the bullet hole in the glass above us closed, as the sheets in the bed made themselves. Julia spoke to me. "What can you not do?" I replied quickly. "Lose you." She laughed. "Smooth, Daniel," I continued. "There's no need for us to talk anymore. Walk to me." I lifted my hand and Julia walked forward to press her forehead against it. With Julia breathing softly as my skin wanted hers, I formed a new stone. It grew in the center of her mind and glowed of another color, blue. Tears poured from Julia's eyes as she whimpered, "What is this?" I replied in her mind silently. She looked up at me as I dropped my hand and listened to her words. I spoke within the walls, behind her eyes, the skull. "Now I cannot lose you, ever." As Julia realized I made her invulnerable to harm, she smiled in a manner that seemed scared, sad, and hopeful all at once. I grabbed Julia's hand, gazed deeply into her, and got her back to the bed to finish what we had started. Please tell me it's not gonna be sexy. Please tell me it's not gonna be sexy. The next morning we disappeared together. Good. I did not want to see the statutory rape scene. Spending most of our days in the woods, talking to each other in silence about everything we could. The majority of our conversation revolved around our love for each other. I above all realized love was a product of biology, designed to encourage soul to reproduce, but it was something I treasured and chose not to remove from either of us. Who texted me? Julia would have our child one day. She insisted to me and I felt her desire, but another desire existed. There were people around the world just like her, people if I had met instead of her, I could have cared for in a similar way. There were innocent people, there were lost children. I was doing nothing for any of them despite being given all the power I could have. Society was like a book full of images saturated with gore and chaos. I could stomach the cover, but at the moment I tried to open a single page, I felt defeated, hopeless. However, I remained a teenager. While I could take actions to preserve my own existence and that of those I love, I don't know where to begin when it came to the order of society. I have no idea how to decide who lives or who dies when they are not an active threat to anyone. Let me guess. This book is gonna end with Onision turning into like some light Yagami god. That's how it's gonna end, isn't it? And that was it. I decided that to truly justify taking human life, they had to be an active threat to another human life. I had to allow the world to continue mostly unaltered, but save enough people to make a significant difference overall. We were sitting outside a cabin, looking on a massive private lake. We didn't belong there. It was not ours, but there was not much to say anything belonged to anyone. Oh, Greg, you're so deep. Wow. The cabin was abandoned for years. My thoughts of my place in the world plagued me just like most any human. What was my purpose? So you're just gonna play hero? Julia spoke for the first time in weeks with her own voice. I replied, "Why speak aloud?" She answered, "It's fun sometimes, but I don't know. Seems like no matter what you do, the world will just keep being this way. You have the ability to change it all, but you don't know if a world without darkness would really be living. So you have a choice to either end it all, let the shadows fade, or," I cut her off, "I can reprogram it all." She responded, "Lobotomize everyone?" I sat there silently. "No more mental illness. I'm going to cure everyone," I said. She replied, "So no more therapy, no more medication or disorders for anyone?" I smiled and said, "I don't know of anyone who wants to be damaged." She added, "Is being damaged what makes us us?" I was at a loss. I had a loaded gun without a trigger. This is painful. After extensive thought, I decided to change the world in a way that would allow everyone to remain themselves, only the consequences for our actions shifted. I ripped a hole in the reality standing before me. I looked into the design of it all and got to work manipulating the skeleton of our society. I strengthened potential victims of crimes. I designed defense mechanisms, enhanced aspects of the human body to strike back in a naturally equitable manner. Fingernails became as strong as steel. There was no longer an imbalance between the genders. Children were given the natural inclination to know the locations of their parents and vice versa, so they could never be lost or abducted effectively. I treated the world like lines of code in a video game, changing hit points, stamina, strength. I redesigned our species. Like I said, evolution was failing us, and that was the correction. However, I was a product of evolution. The time to return to society I had transformed had come. So basically, Onision is God now. I mean, I know he sees himself as God, but Jesus Christ, this is fucked! What the fuck am I reading? Chapter 18, Homecoming. I need water. I found myself floating. Soft clouds touched my skin, but I couldn't feel a thing. Julia said, "I am so cold, Daniel," as she held my hand, floating thousands of feet above the ground right next to me. I replied, "How about now?" She smiled quickly. "It's gone completely." I smiled with her. I asked, "Where do you want to go?" Julia replied, "Anywhere, really. We should visit my home at some point. My ability to make her comfortable, to change her physical body so she could feel whatever she desired, to make her dreams come true, her happiness was mine." Without hesitation, I flew us toward Julia's house. Initially, Julia's body kind of dangled behind mine as she had no ability to keep up as I soared through the air. Flying hundreds of miles per hour was not simple, even with the ability I gave her. There were a couple points where Julia's pants fell down, but I simply fabricated new ones. At one point she said, "If you could just make them with your mind, why not pants? Why not make pants that don't fall when we fly?" I laughed. That's not an answer. Julia's parents were too fond of me because, he's 14 and their daughter's like 18 now. This is super fucked. I snatched their daughter without notice or any hint of our destination. Also, your reminder, the unannounced return couldn't possibly be received well. Landing softly in her driveway, Julia immediately pulled her shoelace out of her shoe and tied it around her waist. I smirked and asked, "How are you gonna keep your shoes on when we fly?" She replied quickly, "We're not flying," interrupted Julia, and as flew past my shoulder, smacking the ground a couple of feet behind me. A scream sounded off from Julia's house. It was her father with his wrinkled up face and angry eyebrows. He yelled, "You're a dead man. Where's my daughter?" He stomped out and immediately lost his footing when Julia yelped, "Hello, Daddy." The man tripped to his knees right in front of me. He was incredibly choked up and ran over to her, hugging her and saying all the things dads, possessive, say when magical boys fly their daughters to faraway places and without warning and later randomly return them. After realizing his daughter was in on running away for a while and that no one tricked her father into losing her unwilling daughter, he welcomed me in his house. He didn't apologize for throwing an axe at me, but you could see the apology in his forehead wrinkles when he changed his tone. Again, Daniel's a minor in this book. Julia's mother was equally happy to see her daughter, although fortunately for me, she saw her daughter first before recognizing that I was in the room. I'm sure it would have been Mace, which I likely would feel for at least a second before reprogramming that aspect of my body as well. There was cornbread cooking in the oven, a noodle dish in the rack above with salad and raspberry lemonade to help flush it down. At dinner, Julia's father had a lot to say about the changes I made to the world. Apparently, he knows that Onision's a god now, okay. Not knowing I played any part of it. Never mind. He spurred out, "So women have teeth on their crotches now, eh, Daniel?" In the middle of drinking my lemonade, I tried to swallow it without a hiccup. Clenching my throat, I replied, "Yes, I thought that would make sense." I hate this, 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 I hate this! Her dad looked concerned. "What do you mean?" I replied sincerely, "I mean men have their swords, women should have their blades too, right?" Julia's father gave me a sarcastic look. "Oh, you're one of those." I giggled slightly and said, "One of it," quickly went silent mid-sentence. The moment I saw into his mind, without even inquiring, I saw all the women he hurt. He had even attacked Julia's friends when he was younger. Oh, God. Oh, my God. I hate this. He was a serial predator, and the moment I realized what he was, he dropped dead, face falling flat in his noodles. As Julia's mother screamed in horror, I sat there frozen, angry with myself, angry with society, angry with the world that was still broken. I changed the future, but these people from the past, they all remained regardless of the things they had done. Stepping out of my thoughts, I saw Julia staring at me, tears running down her face, eyes turning red with a mixture of sadness and anger. She saw everything about her father I had just seen. She invaded my mind as soon as she realized I was not reacting to her father's death whatsoever. She projected her thoughts into my head seconds after I made eye contact with her. How much longer is this chapter? Julia did not want me there. She understood why I did what I did, but she also just lost her father and couldn't process everything with me and around. Upon realizing I was not welcome, using the black rock in my skull, I materialized a dark coffin one any family would be proud of. Seconds passed and the coffin was complete, so I dropped it in the middle of their front room. Inside the coffin, I left enough money to more than compensate the household for the loss of its primary breadwinner, wrong possessive its. Mother screamed again, only this time with a coherent command, "Call an ambulance, God, I can't find my phone, call now," and I replied, "They're on their way." However, I did not use her phone. I simply sent a signal to the brains of the closest medics, but I knew it would not help. I was simply doing it for the mother. She did not need to know the truth about any of this. Such information could cause a person who dedicated their whole life to fraud to fall into a deep depression, possibly leading to them taking their own life. It was tragic already that even his daughter had to know the truth about her father. Walking out the front door, I spoke to Julie's mind. "I'm sorry, I'll return when you call for me." But when my words hit her mind, it was like a car falling in water. First an impact, apparent rejection, followed by a slow sinking and absorption of everything that made contact. Overwhelmed with emotion, I sprinted through the trees, the bushes, even fences, breaking everything in my path. My shoes would fall apart, only to be reformed again and again. I would simply design clothing for myself using the universe's code that would result in no deterioration of anything I wore, despite the stress I subjected to it. But my clothes helped me keep track of how much damage I would be enduring if I was something even remotely close to human anymore. The more I ran, the more I realized I didn't know where I even wanted to go. All I could think about was Juliet back at her house with her mother, locked in sorrow. Without thinking of it, about it, I stopped mid-step, landing in the middle of the lake. I sank, so distracted by my thoughts that I didn't bother to fight it. I couldn't see anything underwater. I didn't like feelings that so I made it clear and pure. I could see for hundreds of feet now. So many things cast aside, boots, boats, and endless trash. I can't read this right now. I just wanna die. Give me like some sleep and I'll be back. Okay? Okay. Hey guys, it's the next day. I feel a lot better now. I just needed to sleep a lot. But I'm back here to finish off the second part of Reaper's Creek Part 2. And to help me, I've got a little bit of alcohol, just a little bit today. Just this white wine. And it'll help me get through this absolute bollocks. Thinking about Julia, in the cold depths of the water, I felt warmth. I was becoming hopeless, and I knew I could change that in an instant, but to do so would be to lose meaning, to become someone who truly has nothing to lose and no one to love. Wow, Greg, you're so deep. You're so deep, Greg. I love you, Greg. You're so deep. Hours passed as I thought about where I should go. What the point would even be of me going anywhere, and I decided I wanted to return to the life I knew. Where'd you come from? Where'd you go? Where'd you come from? Con-Eye Joe. My curiosity and sense of obligation to my family seemed to be my only remaining ties to my identity. I needed to return to my home. Landing in my mom's rock and dirt yard behind her condo, I walked in the sliding door, the locks opened for me without much consideration. No door was truly closed to me. Mom! Joanna! I yelled. Life would be easier for me if I simply programmed them where to be and when, but that would take away the whole purpose of my life. I didn't want to bring myself back to the abomination I found myself living in while recovering in the nurse's office. My sister yelled out, "Daniel!" and ran up to hug me. "Hey," I said as she hugged me. Brought to you by the Department of Redundancy Department. I added, "Mom isn't home?" And before she could answer, I already had all the info I needed. She replied, "Sheep," but I put up my finger to silence her as I essentially had already downloaded everything I missed. "So Mom has been dating around. No luck yet." Joanna replied, "So you're still a freak. Cool." That night my sister and I played video games, or at least tried. She quit shortly after saying she was bored. It was typical among siblings, both wanting to hang out with the idea of their brother or sister, neither wanting to hang out with the actual person who was their brother or sister. Brought to you for no reason whatsoever. Wow, Greg, you're so deep. You're so deep, Greg. Wow. Wow. I should probably not rest my legs on the tripod. My mom returned late that night. She was partially drunk when she saw me, but sober enough to know who I was and that I was gone for some time, staring at me for only a moment. As she came through the door, without a word, she walked up to her room. My mom still hadn't gone over her eyes and what I did to them. She hadn't gone over anything I had done. I left the condo immediately after. I always hated being where I'm unwanted. Then why did you go home in the first place, dumbass? If people are better off without me, then I am better off gone. My next destination is where I spent most of my childhood, the creek. The Reaper's Creek! The small square house, the abduction site. Landing in the middle of my old yard, I could see my mom's house had still not sold. It was a problem I could fix. In an instant, the documents signed themselves for the sale of the house. The money transferred itself, and just like that, it all belonged to me. Before walking into the moonlit wood home, I noticed a red glow coming from the creek. The quiet hum of death filled my ears. I could feel the other side calling me. Curiosity consumed my mind. In the morning, I would begin digging up the bodies, but tonight I would lay on my foam mattress next to the raging furnace in my tiny old room in my tiny old house, which apparently has not gotten dilapidated in the past years where you have not lived in it. Oh, and a chapter. All right. I'm gonna go ahead and pour myself some wine. There we go. There we go. And before you say in the comments that the glass is dirty, I know it's dirty. I can't machine wash this. I'm trying my best. Chapter 19, Golden Man. That's one word away from Golden Boy, which is a really good mountain goat song. I recommend it. I woke up alone to the sounds of birds chirping outside. I could hear the water from the creek. If I wanted to, I could even hear my grandmother's breathing next door if I really tried. I could also feel the radiant glow of death lining our creek bed. It was time to lose myself, my world. I was losing my hunger, losing my urges, growing beyond whatever I was before, day by day. I'm not sure I even cared. You know, yesterday when I said that the ending was going to be that Onision would become a god, I was joking. Please tell me this isn't what's actually going to happen. Walking out to the creek, the sun beamed down on my pale skin. I squinted only to wonder why. All I had to do was reprogram my eyes' tolerance for light, and like that, it was done. I could see everything, eyes wide open. I slipped my bare feet into the water. Then I slipped my feet further into the rocks, the dirt, and shortly after my knees followed. Then my hips and my chest. I was fully submerged in the ground, moving freely. Everyone else had to respect the physical world, not me, because it's my book and I can do what I want! They had to adhere to the laws of it, not upset or disturb it for risk of repercussions, but I had yet to meet a physical mass I could not pass through. As I sank my head under the water, through the mud, with my mind, I made the dirt clear, just as I had the water at the lake prior. I could see all the bodies hidden and misplaced. There were women down there. I counted 14 within a mile's radius. I would walk inside the earth and come across bones seemingly every 100 yards. Reaching through the dirt, liquefied to my touch, I felt the bones of each person, and they were all put there by the same man. Gary! Who's Gary? Like, it might be the alcohol frying my brain, but I don't remember who Gary is. Most of these women were previously working at strip clubs, paid to leave with the man, never to see their family or friends again. I rose above the dirt and water, planting my feet on the rocks in the creek bed as if I were normal for a moment. I heard a familiar voice call out, "Daniel, what are you doing? You're soaking! Who the fuck is pinging me?" It was my grandma. I found myself in front of her house on my hunt for the victims of Gary. I shook my head as the water shot off in all directions. My hair extended outward, doubling in length. My hair turned from brown to golden blonde and my skin heated till the water steamed off it, leaving me dry, still holding a piece of a woman's leg in my hand. My hair was so bright now and flowed to my shoulders. By why? My grandma was speechless in seeing my transformation, as she should have been. I had no idea what would cause me to suddenly change like this. I simply desired to be as warm and dry as my comfort would see fit. But this change, this physical alteration, it felt right. As I lifted off the ground, I could see tears falling from my grandma's eyes. She was always religious and probably felt I was blessed by her God. Unfortunately for me, I could not detect any gods. I could not see anything in the universe but common creatures. I was capable of so much, but I would be foolish to assume I was the most powerful being out there. Wow, you're so humble, Greg. Wow, you're so pretty and so right, Greg. Greg! I soared through the air, waiting for Gary's energy to reach out like a hand to guide me. As my legs trailed behind me, they grew. My arms began to bulge, pressing against my white button-up shirt. Hairs pushed out of my arms. And distracted by this fact, I let myself fall from the air. Landing shoulder first in a Christmas tree crop, I groaned even more confused about what was happening to me. I felt no pain. I was simply lost and concerned for what had taken over me. I was so used to being in control. I wanted to see my face, but couldn't, as I was still in my own body and had no reflection to look upon. Everything else was changing. I needed a better look at myself, and there was a simple solution. My soul shut out of my body without hesitation, and I was immediately able to see a man with blue eyes, broad shoulders, at least 6 feet tall standing there. He looked like he was in his late 20s, almost double my age. Is this Onision's, ideal version of himself? Because this reads like Onision's ideal version of himself. Shit! I spilled a little bit of the wine on my comforter. I looked down at my soul. To my surprise, my body mirrored the man I just jumped out of. I had changed on every level without touching a line of code. Moving back to my body, I reminded myself of my agenda. I didn't want to waste time on my identity crisis while Gary was still out there. As I searched for Gary's energy standing in the field, I found myself humbled by fate. I was already within 500 feet of him. This field was his property. He was the person who ran the Christmas tree farm. Oh, how lucky for you, Greg. How lucky for you, Greg. Without a moment's hesitation, his throat was in my hand. I had split a line of his trees, ripping them up from the rods, destroying half of his house as my body slammed through it just to hold his neck in my right hand. I didn't want to dive into his mind. I didn't want to see what he had seen. I just wanted to know one thing. Gary gasped for air, so I released him and altered his own body to have no response to gravity. He was helpless, floating in his own house as I finished coating his body to suffer from paralysis in his weightless state. I asked him, why? Gary was still able to move his mouth, and he used to scream, who are you? What's going on? I screamed back, why did you kill those women? No, question mark? He yelled back, you're the devil. You're here to claim my soul? It took you long enough, you monster. His jaw was ripped off with my thoughts alone. As his tongue flung out and slapped against his chest, I removed his arms, legs, and all the bones in his torso. His screams sounded like the countless women he tortured and killed finding peace. They sounded like justice. The world didn't need him in it. In a mere breath's time, he ceased to exist as anything but ash on the floor of his half-demolished house. Gary was gone, however. On his walls, he had pictures of all his friends, men who looked just like him, mirroring his stretched-out plaid shirts and jeans far too small for his body. Looking at the photo, I planted their faces in my mind and closed my eyes. There were 7 men total who had collaborated with Gary. They didn't kill the women, but they knew what he did, and covered for him every chance they could, providing burial locations, Overwatch assistance, and even transportation. 5 of the men, I simply called for them to cease to exist. In an instant, I felt an absence of their presence on Earth. The last 2 I wanted to see personally. I wanted an answer to my question. The first of these 2 men was named Raymond, like the cat from Animal Crossing. He tried to meet me with a shotgun. Unfortunately for him, it had no effect considering the alterations I made the instant he lifted it to me in his driveway. The moment he pulled the trigger, the butt of his gun exploded into pieces, shooting into Raymond's eyes. Ew. He fell screaming to the gravel rocks beneath my feet. No shit. I dove into his mind and saw Gary. I saw Raymond helping Gary load the bodies, and before I could even finish that thought, Raymond was gone, burned in the rage I felt when I saw him lifting those girls one by one, some drugged, some dead, destined to be buried and hidden from anyone who could help, with the exception of me. What have you done? Where did Raymond go? An older female cried out, having witnessed Raymond fall. In a glance, I sent the woman the same image as I had just witnessed, and without a single word from me, the woman began screaming in agony. Only generic, predictable words came from her mind. Raymond, how could you? Why Raymond? I heard her repeat this over and over as she cried in her driveway. Her sound of sorrow trailed behind me as I flew towards the last person involved, Joseph. Joseph was sitting on his porch. He was using a breathing assistance device. Joseph had let his body go since meeting Gary. Right away, I knew he had been trying to eat himself to death the moment he learned of the first girl. It was clear to me that Joseph would talk. So I walked up to him and asked, why did Gary kill all those women? Why did you help him? Who the fuck is Gary? I literally don't remember who Gary is. Joseph began crying. I could see all the things he had done to help Gary get away with murder, but I could also see his face every second he was involved. He wasn't angry, he wasn't disgusted, all he was sad. I spoke to Joseph. He killed your wife. He killed her before he ever made the deal with you. Joseph screamed at me. He said she was alive. He said he'd give her back, following his words with sobbing and incoherent groans. Most anyone could do nothing for this man. I could also choose to do nothing, but instead I set out the soul of his wife and lured her to my side. As she stood beside me, I gave Joseph the ability to see her. In the word of the dead, she was happy. She was warm and comfortable. The moment Joseph saw this, his tears of pain turned to cheers of joy. At that moment, I stopped his heart. As his body slumped forward, a much thinner man stood up and walked out of him. Joseph was whole again. Everyone who hurt those women was now dead. Although unlike the other men, Joseph still remained intact. I began to fly home, leaving Joseph and his wife in each other's arms. In my attempts to leave, I felt a strong beam pull me off course. I could see it as yellow in color, and any resistance I tried to apply made me feel like a fly with its wigs stuck to tape. Their error, not mine. As if gaining away would force me to leave a piece of myself behind. This force was stronger than any alien beam I had felt before. For the first time since gaining my abilities, I found myself completely helpless. Chapter 20. God, give me a second. Apparently I only have 16 pages left in this part, because the way I downloaded this, it was chapters 1 through 21 in one file and the other 3 chapters in a different file, so I might as well just read these chapters today and finish it off later. Chapter 20, God. I felt like I was covered in slime, laying on the ground, staring at a distant white light. The ground was hard, cold like ice. Hairline cracks I could barely sense ran through the white and black veinous surface that seemed to stretch on for miles in the blackness that surrounded me. You're not as powerful as you think, Daniel. A voice came from the white glowing light above me. Oh my God, God actually... Is he gonna, have a duel with God and become the supreme God? Is that how this is gonna end? Please tell me this isn't how it's gonna end. I keep making jokes, but they keep turning out to be real? What? Looking up, I called back, I didn't ask for any of this. I don't care about any of this. The voice shouted back, don't waste my time, Daniel. And with a thunderous boom, the light shot forward and smacked against the ground in front of me. No shit. I wanted to see what was beneath the light, so I altered my eyes to cut through whatever cloak this creature was putting up. Immediately, time slowed in accordance with my will, and a skull riddled with decay was revealed beyond the light. The lower jaw of the skull was missing, and the spine of this creature was being held together by screws and metal bars. My vision went to white, then black as the creature impacted the rock floor we stood upon. I corrected my eyes again to see a man standing before me with an aura that glowed yellow. His eyes shined blue, and he wore a black and white striped suit. Only this suit seemed to have no ends, like it just faded into his bones. He spoke again. I am an angel, and you are disrupting the order of our world. I replied immediately. You are no angel. You are death. I saw your rotting bones, and what you are showing me now is a lie. The creature stomped on the ground furiously and screamed, What? How could you possibly? Who are you? What are you? Oh my God. This has gone into a weird territory that I was not expecting. But then again, it's Onision. And of course, it's his fucking book. He can do whatever the fuck he fucking wants. Fuck. It shot his hand up in the air, clicking his fingers together. The healthy-looking man he was projected flickered to his bone form as he clicked. Brought to you by the Department of Redundancy Department. Silence fell in the room as his jawless face turned to me. I felt it smile even though the bones before me remained still. Upon the second echo of his clicked fingers bouncing through the black room, I felt my chest explode. My spine ripped down my back as my heart shot forward. Thank God he died. My face turned to joy as my blonde hair thrusted backward. I could only hope that this creature was going to lead me to the answers I craved. My upper body separated from the bottom and my head smacked against the ground. My blood flew in all directions, even splattering against the creature dead stare. The Reaper, I'm guessing that's the creature's name, silently walked toward my upper body and bent over to look into my eyes. I mouthed words silently to him. I felt the confusion of the Reaper. He had no idea what I was trying to say. Laughter erupted through me, causing blood to shoot out of my mouth into his skull again. I could read the mind of the Reaper now because, of course, Daniel can. It's his book. He can do whatever the goddamn fuck he wants. I saw every life he took, every person he robbed of this world before their time and in most unforgivable ways. He watched groups of orphaned children burn. He danced to the cries of women being invaded, violated, and murdered by forces from other countries. The order I was disrupting was not made up. There was in fact an order, and this Reaper designed the order to be merciless and indiscriminate. I wanted this Reaper, death itself, to understand what I was saying in my mangled state on the floor. For the record, my added intensity is not me getting into this book. It's just me being absolutely frustrated and flabbergasted at what direction Onision's taking, okay? Okay, glad we got that sorted out, Levs. So I altered the code to rattle his head with the sound of my amplified voice. The words I mouthed were, say goodbye to control, as the creature shook and screamed, and the echoes of my voice exploded through his mind. He yelled back, I am in control, I am death. Altering the code, I summoned the creature and his screams of the gray material designed myself in a matter of seconds. I created it to contain any force, including death itself. I bound the creature, controlling the mass with my mind as the gray material fully enclosed around this Reaper. I crushed him to the size of a child's marble. Still laying on the floor in pieces, the black rock of my head shot out of my defeated body and formed a new shell around it. I liked the body of the man that was thrust onto me and kept this form. Walking over through the marble now, rolling around the floor, I picked it up and held it in front of my face. I could still feel the energy of the creature inside. Unfortunately for the creature, however, it could not process thought with its new condition. I had converted the existence of death into a crippled and impotent state. God fucking damn it! God fucking damn it. Okay, I changed my camera battery. Let me put my other battery into its charger, and then we're gonna continue this bullshit. I had to alter the code of reality again to extract the origin of this Reaper from a state of combustion that didn't exist before. As I scanned the data before me, I found the source of death. It aligned closely with what most humans consider God. God fucking damn it! What the fuck is this nonsense? But in the code, I also saw a truth that many had never imagined. God was not the source of all things. God was just another son. He created evil like death because he was evil himself. Oh, fuck. This has just turned into the Atheist's Manifesto now, hasn't it? Oh my god. The devil never really existed. As people had believed for so long, the devil was just an aspect of God's divided personality, like anyone's father when he is in his worst mood. Every crime, every tear that fell, it was caused by God. He created death, he created our suffering, and he sent the Reaper to end me. The code before my eyes revealed God's face and the expression he had when he sent death to me. He was not too busy to handle this himself. He was just afraid. Oh God. Again, I was joking when I said the ending was gonna be that Onision would battle God himself. Is this actually going to be what happens? Diving deeper into the code, I could see God's father, a man by the name of Cole. Cole was unlike God in that God was flesh through and through. Cole, however, had no flesh in his skull whatsoever. It was composed of a substance most any human would perceive as gas and dust. I searched the code for God's location. However, 3 different locations came back to me. Without hesitation, I lifted my arm, directing my energy to my former body, laying there, split in 2 on the floor. My former flesh united again. My skull filled with light and closed to become whole again. I spoke to the old body as a new stone formed within it is heart. You are everything I am not. You are compassionate where I am cruel. You are true where I am lost. But you are programmed just like everything else on this earth. The body spoke back in a strong and soft voice. I am here to serve you. I am everything you are. Oh God. I am everything you are. You know, when Onision opened up his OnlyFans, he showed weird porn of him sucking off himself. Because sucking off like the superior version of himself? Is this how he got the inspiration for that? Don't answer that for me. I want to live in blissful ignorance. Without further instruction, the body shot through the seemingly endless black above us and ripped a hole as his body shot through the limits of the illusion death had surrounded us in. The body looked down on me as the walls of black flowed down to the ground miles all around me like curtains being ripped from the windows in slow motion. The body's hair floated before the now exposed sun. He smiled on me as a tear slid down his face. I flinched my eyes at him and his smile faded. Within a blink, he was gone to confront one of the God locations. Now seeing the fabric walls fade around me, I could see I was very near when I was hit with the beam of energy earlier. My chains were lifted. I could feel my freedom again. The second and third God locations would be up to me. Picking one, I launched off the ground, cratering the rock left in my wake. As I flew at a blinding speed, I called for Julia to meet me miles outside my destination. She arrived seconds after I did. Apparently, she has since forgiven Daniel for the incident before. Julia walked toward me with a concerned expression. She knew who I was. She was already in my mind. I think you might be too old for me now, Daniel, she said with a smirk, observing my new appearance. Good night, everybody! No. I'm going to finish this for YouTube. I laughed and grabbed her by the throat, light illuminated under my palm on her neck as she dove into my thoughts once more. I could feel Julia let herself get overtaken by fear. She spoke in my mind. You want me to kill God? I was joking! What? I spoke a line in response. I just put everything you need in your body. It'll attach you in a way that cannot be separated by anything but me. Julia looked down at the ground as I released her throat. She began to cry. I could see she was out of line asking so much of her. I was out of line asking so much of her. She had the tools now, but not the will. I spoke again. I've asked too much. This is my dysfunctional way of spending time with you, but clearly I didn't think about you before thinking of myself. Julia looked up and said again in my mind, anything less screwed up I can do for you, Daniel? As she wiped away her tears from the stress I caused her, I held out her hand upside down and clenched. She reached out hers. A marble hit her palm. Julia looked up at me confused. I spoke aloud, again. That is the Grim Reaper. He is frozen in there. It cannot escape. Hold on to him for me, will you? Julia began to say something back but couldn't finish her thought. I was already gone. The body had already concluded the first god location. I wanted to beat him to the others. Chapter 21, The Hand of God. Fuck! What is this incel nonsense? In an instant, I was already where I needed to be. Location coding is rather simple. I just didn't want to take my time traveling. I now stood behind a man who looked like what most anyone would imagine God to be. A white silhouette that flickered black to white stood before me, a massive yellowish gold light beamed from around him. I felt him watching me, despite the appearance that he was not even facing me. There was no delay. Energy set out of the god figure, and I immediately felt the rock in my head begin to take the blunt of his attack. The body instantaneously appeared, slamming God into a body 5 times larger than he had before. It was too late to stop God from damaging my core existence. The attack he jolted my head with. I was so underprepared. I was joking! Jesus Christ, this is actually how it's gonna end? Collapsing on the white and yellow slabs of stone, I found God's half standing on. My vision blurred and I felt like I had to vomit while simultaneously getting the sensation that the black hole within my head was sucking my mind into itself. I heard a scream like I had never heard before. It wasn't coming from the body. I looked up with my failing eyes and saw God's hand explode into bloody shards for everyone to see. He had attempted to strike the body down, yet his violence turned on him tenfold without any reaction from the body. I could see God wielding a sword in his remaining hand as he reformed the other. He took a clear swing at the body, attempting to decapitate my creation. As the blade approached the body's head, God slowed until coming to a complete state of standing paralysis. His hand remained half-formed, his aura flickered like a light bulb, and in his last minutes, his whole body now frozen in place as if his muscles had become cement. It was clear the body had defeated the second half of God. As I felt relief, I allowed myself to collapse completely, yet I remained conscious. I could see the body walking over to me, his thoughts. I could not feel them anymore. I could not communicate with him or even sense his presence in the way I was used to. In his warm giant arms, I felt myself lifted. I dangled there like a child who had just fallen from his bike. As the body walked away from the second god half, I looked back and saw the frozen man begin to crumble until shards of stone, then into dust, till eventually he was nothing. You heard that right! Onision has killed God! That is the climax of this book! I am just as shook as you are! The body placed his hands over my eyes as I felt blood from my skull seep out of my forehead, trickling down into my ears as I remained limp in his arms. I heard popping noises, and I felt my bones being pulled out of my brain where the second god had crushed them into me. With only minutes past, I was fully healed again. Thank God. The body had taken me to a wooded area far from where the last god fell, placing me to a standing position. The body spoke. The first god was very informative. I quickly replied, yes, clearly you learned some deal. You handled the second like it was nothing, but... The body interrupted me. The reason you can't read my mind, the reason you can't even sense me is because to defeat the first god, I had to operate in an entirely different universe of code. Of course! Of course! For once in a long time, I was completely lost. I replied, go on. The body nodded to me and continued. This world, everything we know here, it operates in on system, one program. Everything on this world is accessible by you and me, but it is also accessible by the gods. I began to understand what the body was talking about. He was going to tell me that he had found a way to prevent the gods from altering his code. The body interrupted my thoughts. What you're thinking is somewhat true, but in reality, I don't even operate off code anymore. I am no longer a prisoner to programming. Just like that, I was completely lost again. The body continued. There is a realm of existence beyond our own, beyond the universe, beyond all we know. To put it simply, humans are to computers as I now am to humans. My existence is far more complicated than the comparatively simple lines of code you designed me with. I looked at the ground, feeling humbled. I replied, so what you're saying is no one here can stop you. The last god will not be challenged whatsoever, no matter how strong he is. The body smiled and replied, only this time he spoke directly to my mind, sharing exactly what I needed to do to become like him. I immediately took advantage of the information he provided. Within seconds, I felt like my whole mind was being pulled into quicksand, and slowly after it, the reminder of my entire existence, my body, everything. Dipping to my knees, I grunted and struck the ground as if someone had knocked the wind out of me. After the initial shock, my lost sense of the body returned. I also could feel the last of the three gods stronger than before. I could feel the presence of Julia as if she was right in front of me. I knew exactly where David was, where all my teachers from school were. I knew the location of everyone and everything as if they were a short reach away. So many things seemed unlike they were before. Instead of having to search for codes within the universe to answer whatever questions I had, I now only had to look within my own mind. I looked into the body's mind to see how the first god half was defeated. I was bombarded with images of the body nearly dying. I saw the first god attempt to cut off the body's head just like the second had, only the first god was successful. Witnessing the images of the body appearing dead, I could see him now standing physically in front of me with eyes of sadness. Digging back to the past, more images flooded in. The body had done what I had done. I learned from you, the body spoke up, interrupting my observation of what had happened. I gave the body the ability to do most anything I could do, and that he too created a replacement for himself. Only while forming the new body, he multiplied its size and shifted its programming to a form the first god could not comprehend. But therefore it could not alter or impact in any significant way. As the first god sliced every part of the original form of the body into pieces, his new shell was forming behind the unwitting deity, First god could not detect the body, just like I could not, and without delay, the far larger form of the body crushed the first god half into sludge. The body then altered the second god's code to become divided so thinly that he could be blown away as meaningless fragments of trash in the wind. Before I could finish full absorption of the information, the body was already up to something new. With a mere thought, he had delivered the last god to us, already paralyzed, but clearly very much so awake. Standing before us, the last god was paralyzed not just by the power of the body, but also frozen in his own terror. The body allowed God to speak. "You are punishing me, aren't you? Haven't you done enough?" God shouted. I looked at the body, cueing him to speak for me. The body smiled slightly, feeling honored his creator wanted him to speak to God in his place. But I knew the body was well aware that I remained humble. Wow, Greg, you're so cool. As he evolved faster than even me, the body spoke. You invented everything wrong with this world. Countless humans and other animals have been slaughtered under your watch. Children dying of cancer, mothers crying as their half-formed children fall from their bodies. Innocent people drowning in your floods, burning in your fires. Tell me, God, does the devil really even exist? Because I can't sense him anywhere. God laughed and the body interrupted his laughter. It was a rhetorical question, God. I'm well aware there is no devil. I'm well aware if there was a devil, he would have been one of the first God halves I already killed. I'm well aware that you are a failure of your father Cole, and I know that this world wasn't even your creation, rather a creation of the sister you murdered, the daughter of Cole, and you took her life right before the first genocide you committed against her creations. God screamed as spit poured out of his mouth. How could you possibly know that? You're the creation of a boy in a man's body. You've existed for only days, and you can just tell me who I am? My sister was scum. She was everything my father wanted, and my father was scum too. As I watched the body continue to scold God, I could see what the body was seeing. God not only killed his sister, he had also violated her body. He killed her in his own shame as a result of what he did to her. He was jealous of his father's love for his sister, and he wanted to do everything he could to claim the power his sister wielded. He wanted to ruin her, and out of jealousy, he did every horrible thing he could to her before ending her very existence. I interrupted the body. God, Cain versus Abel, misspelled. Horribly misspelled. Lucifer versus humans. Those are stories of you confessing what you did, but simply placing names on made-up people to take the blame instead of you. It wasn't Lucifer who wanted to torment humanity. It wasn't Lucifer who was jealous how much humans were loved. It was you. It wasn't Cain who resented Abel. That too was a projection of yourself. A sad man who wanted everything his sister had. God was glaring directly into my eyes at this point. No energy came from them. No threats. No fight in him at all. He was shamed, he was defeated, and looking into his eyes with only a thought, I turned his bones into ash. His skin, his muscles, flew to the ground like a puff of steam, slamming up the door, eventually becoming unnoticeable. Looking up at the body, I asked, do you know anything about Cole that I do not? The body replied, I know you think I might have the ability to hide something from you, but I gave that up when I made you like me. I did this because you hid nothing from me. I cannot do any less for you. I looked at the ground where God once stood. I spoke under my breath. So those who drowned in the flood, those were actually the original creations of his sister. They were perfect versions of us, and God thought he could do better. Yet God wound up making so many of us like him. So my question is, the body spoke back, why did Cole willingly create a monster like God? That's the end of my first part. Onision has killed God. That is canon. See you next time when we finally finish this fucking bullshit. Okay, gang, it's been a couple days since I read up to chapter 21 of Reaper's Creek by Onision, and we only have 3 chapters left, so I figured I might as well deal with it before I work out and shower. Now, considering that in the last part, Onision's self-insert character killed God himself, I'm not prepared for what's going to come. because chances are something even more preposterous is going to come. But luckily, I'm gonna be prepared this time. I have my white wine, and just in case, I have a small travel-sized bottle of vanilla-flavored vodka. So if anything really shitty happens in these last 3 chapters, the vodka will help me wash it down. Yay! So let me load up, because the way I downloaded this was weird and the last 3 chapters are in a different file, so. For reference, this is water. Chapter 22, The Mother of a Better World. All around the world, I could hear people screaming. I could see them being violated, robbed, beaten, and broken down in every way. They were made in the corrupt God's image. Some represented his good side, others were the embodiment of his evil. I grew tired of the sound of suffering as I not only could feel their pain, as they felt it, but it distracted me from Cole, God's father, from finding the answers not even I could provide with all my knowledge and power. I had improved the world when I gained full realization of my ability, but that didn't stop nature from taking its course. I created the body to be my better half, to stand when I could not, and now I had a great task for him. The body stood next to me, waiting for me to vocalize a decision for our next actions. I knew the body could hear the screams as well. I knew he could hear my thoughts and my focus on the pain of the world. I spoke, "I need you to," in the middle of my sentence, the body disappeared. He knew I wanted him to be better than God, to be better than the Reaper, and to reverse the destruction God caused when he killed his own sister. First, that would require the body gaining knowledge on how the world truly was before God, to analyze the code and see what has changed when God wiped out all his sister's children and made poor, corrupted imitations of them. While my creation could focus on the issues of the world, I could focus on Cole. Unfortunately for me, Cole was a god of gods. You would assume to locate someone at the absolute height of the universe's hierarchy would be difficult, but in fact, chronology was my first strategy to locate him, and the strategy was effective. Delightfully crisp. As usual, I had opened a black rip in reality, so I could effectively scan through the data, the universe, the code. I searched back to God's initial code creation, the first time it existed in all of existence. God was in fact not only created second, but at the apparent request of his sister. She wanted a brother, someone to guide and inspire with her creations. However, Cole did not code God properly. Cole made many mistakes with his daughter's much younger brother. To give description to the timeline of Cole's creation to God's creation would be best explained through comparison. The dinosaurs were a creation of Cole. I could see this in the signature and coding style of Cole. The explanation for their extinction, from what I could understand, appeared to be unintentional. The more I analyzed Cole's coding, the more I realized he was nowhere near as thorough as his daughter. Millions of years after the dinosaurs came humans, just like God came after Cole, only in a time frame of trillions. The more I compared God's code to his sister's and then to Cole's, the more I understood exactly what happened between Cole and his children. More importantly, through all my analysis, Cole became incredibly easy to find. He had not moved since the death of his daughter. I focused my energy on instantaneous travel. I simply replaced my current location with that of Cole's, only approximately 20 feet away from him in an area with no conflicting objects or hazards. I did, however, input a modification to my own physical form to ensure Cole would not detect me, and it worked perfectly as I planned. Okay, bottoms up. Ugh. For reference, when you drink hard spirits straight, it burns a little bit. Like, this is 30%. That's, damn. It's overwhelmingly vanilla, though. Oh my god. For reference, you're supposed to dilute these, but I'm not doing that because I'm not a pussy. Before me sat a man in a stone throne, gray as you would expect. The handles of his throne cut sharply into rectangular shapes. The back raised far above his head, and the legs blended into the ground without seams, almost as if the chair had grown into a place like a tree. Above me appeared a small glimmer of light that somehow illuminated the whole room. It was as if I was in a cave with a tiny skylight hundreds of feet above me. The room was surrounded with indentions in the gray stone walls. It was the basic code I first learned to modify basic elements in my life. Within seconds, I identified the code as different variations of Cole's daughter, the process he went through to create her. Man to chair before me, Cole, his skin was like glass, only the color of gray. I could see his eyes under his closed eyelids. One was blue, one was red. He had no beard, no hair on his head, but his face looked so tired and old. If I had to compare Cole's appearance to that of a person on Earth, I would say he resembled someone who was 145 years old. He had wrinkles everywhere. Even under his dark blue, shiny garments, I could see he was shriveled and hunched. After analyzing the room and the man himself, I decided I would make myself appear before him. As I lifted the veil, misspelled, around me, he slowly opened his eyes and lifted his head toward me. The man's face began to shake gently, his blue eye filled with tears. Without a moment's hesitation, the man began sobbing in his throne, throwing his face into his old withered hands. I spoke aloud to the man. "I'm sorry you're hurting, Cole." The man whimpered and struggled as he spoke back. I couldn't do it. I'm sorry." I could see his emotions like anyone sees color. They radiated out of him like ink polluting other colors as they're simultaneously submerged in water. What? I could also see, feel, and hear his thoughts in code, my own emotions and my mind. As Cole continued to cry, I realized why God had wound up the way he did. Cole created his daughter when he was midway through his life cycle. He created God toward the end of his life cycle. His daughter had become so lonely, and creatures that were not her equal did not satisfy her intellectually or emotionally. As part of her code, she could not create her own, as Cole knew such a creation would force her to shorten her own life. I'm sorry, what? What? So using your own life code to make other forms of life will shorten the gods. What? Okay, we're gonna switch back to the vodka because this is absolute bollocks. Ugh. I do not like drinking straight vodka most of the time, so this is hurting me more than it's hurting you. Knowing his daughter wanted a brother of equal status so badly, Cole created God with his own life force, but Cole, having so little left, made mistakes, leaving him powerless to correct them and powerless to help his daughter if they ever were at odds. Cole spoke with more composure than before. I entered this world with gray eyes. Becoming a father provided me with feelings, thoughts, and hopes that I had never felt before. I knew I made a mistake with God. I know how this sounds, but even if I could change him, I don't think I would have. My only regret is that I could not die in the place of my daughter. The man continued to cry for a moment in front of me, and then struggled while continuing to speak. A father's love for his child, even I cannot change that. You give everything you have to your children. I just wish they didn't have to suffer because of my mistakes. The more I observed Cole's words, his face and his code, I could see how genuine and remorseful he was. I imagined using my power to bring his children before him, only leaving the aspects of God's corrupt code behind. But I knew Cole would not be satisfied without his authentic, original children. I spoke aloud to Cole. I've seen your code, and I know that you cannot see mine as a result of my own evolution. I know that you are incapable of bringing your children back. I know the pain you feel. I have seen much of your life play out before me through the many lines of code that make you who you are, Cole. Cole replied somewhat agitated. We are more than code. My son and daughter were living, breathing gods. I stepped away from Cole and turned my back to him to look at the walls around us. I spoke aloud to Cole. You only display your daughter's code on this wall, Cole replied. It was in memory of her. My last bit of strength after the creation of my son. I ripped through the wall of the universe and searched for code once more and found his daughter's code in the exact form it was just before she had died. After modifying the universe to my will, I turned around to Cole and lifted my arm. As my arm raised, the walls around us transitioned to show God's code instead of Cole's fallen daughters. Cole's eyes widened as he silently watched the world around him shift. I spoke aloud. You won't need to remember your daughter anymore, Cole. She's standing next to you. Cole's chair became weak. His head began to dip forward, and he collapsed in his chair. He could feel his daughter coming back to his reality as she was, just how he remembered her. Okay, remember that dream sequence early in Reaper's Creek where Daniel Onision dreamed of a woman? If this woman looks exactly like that dream woman, I'm gonna throw a fucking fit. This woman was beyond description. I had seen no one like her before. The moment she gained her consciousness again, she immediately went to aid her father. Seeing them reunited, knowing their troubles were mostly behind him. Okay, never mind. Felt confident in the future they would influence without God to end what the world was, or his own sister once more. It was time for me to go home. Jesus Christ, this is bollocks, bollocks, bollocks. Chapter 23, The Black Nightmares. I decided to travel home in a slower manner than usual. I had a lot of thoughts and feelings I needed to give my attention to. While I was traveling through space at thousands of miles per hour, I still had hours before I would arrive home. I felt like crying after seeing Cole see his daughter for the first time in so long. It made me wish I had someone to return to myself. I felt dead to my mother, and my other family seemed to have nothing but negative feelings toward me ever since the incident with my mother's eyes. The only people left in the world who I knew loved me was the body, Onision's actual self-insert, and Julia. Thinking of Julia, my pain from what I had just seen and felt turned to concern. The last time I saw Julia, I had given her the crushed reaper. I decided it was time to stop flying and get to where I was going. Ripping open the coat in her face, I found myself next to Julia seconds later. Julia was bathing when I arrived. Seeing her in a bathtub made me burst out laughing. Julia was not surprised to see me there, thanks how I changed her coat. She knew I was coming. She spoke aloud. I know, Daniel. You could simply alter the code to make yourself not get dirty or even clean yourself right away, but not everyone has lost the simple things in life, you know. I smiled and replied, sorry, I've had a rough day. It's nice to see something like this. She smiled back and replied, I'm sorry for being so I cut her off mid-sentence with a kiss. As I leaned in, kissing Julia, she grabbed me and pulled me into the tub as I screamed and laughed. With little thought, my clothes were rough and we were kissing more heavily. Hours passed, we found ourselves lying in bed talking about numerous things that had changed over the last few weeks. After a while, the Reaper came up. Julia had placed it in a thick metal box by itself on the ground outside. After looking at the code in depth, I realized I had evolved to a point since the body changed me that I could easily remove the Reaper from this world without consequence. I finished him without a second thought. I spoke aloud. Thank you for watching over that for me. She replied, you just erase things, don't you? I replied with a sigh. If I don't remove certain things from this planet, people will get hurt. Julia looked away from my eyes and spoke, I know, but some people care about the people you erased, Daniel. I went silent for a moment, and then after thought, I spoke again. I love you, Julia. I'm sorry my actions have hurt you. Julia's eyes began to water again as she buried her face in a pillow. After a while, her emotions calmed, and we fell into sleep despite not needing to anymore. I woke up the next day to the smell of breakfast. As I rubbed my eyes, I could see a massive blur standing before me. My eyes focused, and I realized that it was the body. He spoke. So I got fired. I exploded with laughter. I immediately dove into the body's thoughts and saw that Cole's daughter had returned to Earth. I could see the changes she had made were extreme and elegant to the moment I looked into the updated code. I searched for code of prisons, military bases, even cancer hospitals, and they were all gone. Cole's daughter had done what I was afraid to do. She didn't acknowledge opinions or cultures, and simply rebuilt the world in the way she deemed fit. The body had informed me that he had already done half the things she was planning to do before she stepped in and corrected some of his shortcomings and took things a step further to more closely resemble her world pre-God. The body spoke to me. She has a message for you. I'm sure you already know it. And he was right. But knowing something and focusing on it are two different things. So I was glad he brought it to my attention. The daughter of Cole, the returned god of Earth, wanted me to know I was forbidden from altering her world further. She also gave me the coordinates of the location to the alien who had sent his own kind out to torture me as a child. I was slightly offended by the level of ego the new god of Earth flaunted, but I was also grateful I could finally find justice for every torture I had encountered as a child. After a short goodbye to Julia, the body and I found ourselves soaring through space to confront my childhood demons. As we approached their planet, I came to understand the blackness of this world made the rest of empty space look like the sun. It was a level of darkness I cannot explain. The body and I floated in place far outside the atmosphere of this abnormal black mass as we studied the code of the planet. Earth's new god had highlighted the code of the alien commander in red. I wanted to just delete the code of the alien commander, but the body introduced another option. He spoke, Julia said you were good at erasing things, and I am like you, deleting other beings as I see fit. I looked at the body as he glanced at this terrifying alien home planet. The body continued, let's give this one a chance. With the new god of Earth managing everything, I had time to dig deeper into this world. The body verified that these aliens operated in basic code and were not a threat to us, as I formed a platform and habitat for the alien to exist in as we spoke to it. While everything this commander did was clearly identifiable, the individual actions, communications, and even thoughts of this alien were difficult to comprehend, as most of the code reflected a culture and a language that was incredibly foreign to me. The body helped transition both of us into a state that was unreachable by this alien, and upon finishing the quarters for this alien, I placed him within it, standing before us. The alien was like a silver wall. He could see in, but all the alien could see inside was black. I designed the cage of sorts to take anything we said to the creature to translate for the alien. It worked both ways. Initially, the alien just made screeching noises and tried to find a way out. So we repeatedly attempted to calm the alien. As we spoke, the alien stopped trying to find a way out and spoke directly up, even though we were on each side of the cage, brought to you by the Department of Redundancy Department. Fucking hell. My assumptions as a child were verified the more we listened to this creature talk. Much of the population of this planet was built on fear. They were so afraid of outside powers that had entire space programs to seek out and destroy sources of energy coming from creatures that were or could become more powerful than them. The body brought something to my attention. I see God had dealt with these creatures before. Looking at the code, I see both him and you cross paths when you were just a baby. Pulling forward the information, I verified what the body had pointed out. God had arranged these aliens to figure out a way to kill me before I could even talk. The code revealed that God could crack the rock in my head but never destroy it entirely, as it would always regenerate. God was using these creatures obsessed with fear to figure out how to eliminate the main threat to his own existence. He had convinced them I was destined to kill them, when he knew the one who was truly threatened was him. You're doing this to me, Greg. You're making me suffer. Oh, Jesus Christ. Tastes like vanilla lip balm. The body exploded with another discovery following the very same code even further back. Daniel, your physical code starts at the date of your birth. But the stone in your head has a code that was created much further back, with your mother, your original mother. My eyes started up at the body. I replied with less shock and optimism than the body. My mother is the new god of Earth. His mother is the new god of Earth, the daughter, the sister of God who was killed. Because of course! It's Greg's book, he can do whatever the fuck he wants! Isn't that right, Greggy Poo? The body looked concerned and replied, you say that like you knew. I replied, I'm sorry, this is just a lot. A loud screech came from the cage once more. The creature was threatening us, despite how obvious it was that it was at a disadvantage. I was frustrated and distracted at this point. The mother I was born of wanted nothing to do with me, and the mother who created me didn't bother to tell me who I was or anything outside where these aliens were. While deep in thought, I felt the body wrap his arms around me. It was the first time I ever felt a giant hug me. I felt so powerless. The body spoke, hey, cheer up, okay? Still upset, I chuckled a little, then patted the body on the side to let him know he could stop squeezing me now. I rubbed my eyes and began modifying the alien's code. As I worked on the alien, the body spoke up. Ew, you thought your mom was hot? I stopped in the middle of coding. What? No. Not my birth mom, and I didn't even know this lady was my original mom. I mean, she made a rock, not my body or anything. The body laughed explosively. You thought your mom was hot. Now you know she's your mom. You still think she's hot? Clearing out the body, I finished the alien's code. I had erased all code revolving around my existence from this moment on. The alien was returned to their home, and I additionally returned the code I had physically destroyed as a child. All the families and soldiers I killed, sending them back to their planet without the memory of what happened or the memory of my existence. Even the coordinates of our planet were erased from their navigation systems and records. The body observed me to do this and spoke, okay, for a guy who likes his mom, that was pretty kind of you to not just kill them all. I spoke to replied, you know I only have eyes for Julia, bud, and gross. The body laughed, saying, I know, and after turning everything was in place on the dark planet, we returned to our own. Peace seemed to be whining, my bad, and I was so happy to be a part of that. Chapter 24, Mother. It has been years since I had seen the god of Earth. The body had altered its own code to be a more normal-sized human, although he was still well over 6 feet tall. He mostly spent his time playing video games and racing vehicles in amateur circuits. Julia and I had been talking about having a baby and making our relationship more official in the world itself. It was hard to find a single thing wrong with it. The economy was designed for the well-being of all. TV shows no longer reflected drama from our own planet, but were most all based on what life was like on other planets, with other gods. Even Cole himself was not the origin of all things. There were many more worlds of many more creators as corrupt as, and even more corrupt than our own former god. I hadn't bothered to visit my family that brought me into my human form 20 years ago. I felt like they were still better off without me. Same goes to my school friend David and even the house by the creek I grew up by. That was all the past I didn't want in my future, and I was certain with our new god, they were all happy anyway. Just like the new god of Earth instructed me, I didn't physically alter the code of her planet or the people on it whatsoever. But I didn't need to, as my original mother was perfect, and no matter how much I evolved, she would still be wiser than me. And that is how it ends, bitches! Jesus Christ, this was a fucking wreck to watch and read. But we're done with it now, so you can stop complaining in the comments and listen to the book all over again, because y'all listening to this will not experience even half of the suffering that I had to go through reading this for y'all. Let me drink myself to an early grave. Good night.